This is Matt with HuntScore. Today we're going to walk through the HuntScore scoring system and give you an in-depth view of how we created it, what the 9 characteristics are that go into creating the HuntScore, the FreezerScore, and the TrophyScore, and help you understand how you can leverage those scores to select your next hunt. All right, so let's start off with picking Idaho, and let's take a look at some elk hunting. All right, the first thing that you're going to notice when you hit the units page is that all of the units are rank ordered in a state and species by the hunt score. That's the default ranking system. And the hunt score, for those of you who aren't familiar or haven't read our methodology yet, the hunt score is really geared towards getting out and being able to hunt consistently year after year after year. So these units are not necessarily the units where you're going to shoot a big trophy animal, or they're not a unit where you're necessarily going to have the highest odds of success, but they are the units that you typically can draw a tag and you'll be able to go hunting. They're also going to have really good public access, so you shouldn't have to worry about finding a spot to hunt. Typically, they're going to have 50% or more land that is public land, either BLM, state, national forest, something like that you'll be able to get out and access. And then we do weight success as another criteria. So let's dive into one of these units and talk about some of the characteristics, the 9 characteristics to be exact, that we look at when ranking a particular unit. So you can see the sawtooth zone here in Idaho comes up as the highest hunt score for elk. So let's take a look at that and see what is it that makes this unit a good unit for elk. One of the things that you're going to notice on the site is right at the top of each unit, we have this panel of scores. And this panel is designed to help you understand where this particular unit ranks relative to the state and give you an idea of how the different characteristics are being ranked within that unit. You can see the 9 characteristics here. If you hover over any of them, you're going to get a short snippet to help describe what that characteristic is. And that's always there just in case you forget. One of the cool things that you can note is we also average the state as a whole, so you can see how does this unit stack up against other units in the state. So as you're trying to make your decisions, you can see, does it have good public access? What's the success rate look like? Is it above or below? To help you kind of gauge where this unit will be. In this case, Idaho as a total has a lot of public land, 62% on average across the units. It tends to be public, so great state for being able to get out and get after the big game species of your choice. So over here, you see we have a hunt score of 78. Again, things that we're going to rate highest in the hunt score, we're really going to be looking at the ease of drawing, because we want people to be able to get out and hunt. We want there to be a lot of public access, and we typically want there to be a decent chance of success. Although success is not necessarily the highest thing here, it's really just about being able to get out and hunt. So jumping into these 9 characteristics to help you understand what each of these characteristics are. Ease of drawing, as we've already talked about, it's really geared towards the draw odds. And this is at a unit level, the ease of drawing is going to be looking at all of the hunt codes or draw codes inside of that unit and seeing how easy is it to draw. The other thing to keep in mind is that we average over the prior 3 years to really understand what the trend is for this particular unit. Success, what we're looking for here is the typical odds that a hunter hunting in that unit is going to actually harvest an animal. So looking at the harvest rates, Idaho in this case publishes the actual success rates by the hunt codes. So that's pretty good. Not every state does. Sometimes they only publish it at the unit level. In this case, we have it at the actual hunt codes, but for a success of 34, that's going to mean on average 34% of hunters are going to harvest an animal. So that's pretty high odds of success. Idaho overall scores really well compared to some other states like Colorado, for instance, where Idaho elk, you're looking at a 32% chance. So a little bit better than average, but overall, pretty good chance. Trophy potential. So here we're looking at all right, trophy potential. Here we're looking at the potential to harvest a trophy class animal, um, that being scored by either SCI, Boone and Crockett, or Pope and Young, whatever the state happens to publish and make available. Currently, we have trophy scores for Idaho and Montana, and we hope that in 2021 we will have trophy scores for all the states that we cover. Um, but right now, you can see this particular unit has a 46. It's not necessarily a very good trophy unit. It's a little bit below Idaho as an overall, but because we're looking at the hunt score here, we're concerned less about trophy potential. Public access. Um, Here you can see very high score of 95, much higher than the state overall, and that helps raise its hunt score. Ease of terrain. We're pretty excited about ease of terrain. This is one of the scores that we worked a lot on developing. Here, what we do is we take all of the roads within a unit and the trails. So any motorized vehicle travel plus foot traffic via trails, US Forest Service trails, trails that BLM might have marked. And we actually generate what we call synthetic hikes, where anywhere from a mile to 2 miles out from points on the road, we create a hike. Uh, then we take elevation data that we have from NASA. NASA went out and collected elevation maps of the whole world. And in the US, we have elevation at, I believe it is 30-meter intervals. And so every 30 meters, we have an elevation measure. And we can see to go from point A to point B, how is your elevation changing? How many times do you incline? How many times do you decline? And we boil all of that down into a score. If you're curious about what types of data we get out of that ease of terrain score, if you're a registered user or a pro user, you'll be able to see this unit elevation profile. And here we'll really break down the information about the elevation in that unit. So we even generate these cool elevation profiles based on all of those hikes we generated. And you can see you shouldn't be surprised to have to gain nearly 1,500 feet in elevation at an elevation of 8,000 feet. If we were to click profile 3 here, let me highlight that. So profile 3, you can see you're going to have to gain some serious elevation, and that's kind of common in the unit. So pretty cool thing that helps you really start to understand units and what you might be in for if you choose to hunt them. Room to breathe. Here, we're really looking at hunter density. So some units could actually be pretty good units to hunt, even though there's a lot of people hunting them, because you could just have a good solid population of animals to hunt. But if you're somebody who cares about not being, shoulder to shoulder with your fellow hunter, you don't really want to see people as you're hiking the backcountry, you're going to want to look for those units that have a very high room to breathe score. So overall, what we look for is typically the number of hunters into the square miles of a unit. So Idaho overall scores pretty good with the 60 on average in the state. This unit's a 62, so it has a decent room to breathe score. But if you're somebody who doesn't ever want to see another hunter, you're going to want to look for something that's up around 100. Now, typically that's going to mean that there are fewer than one hunter per 10 square miles, which is a pretty big area. So room to breathe score really geared towards not being pressured and crowded in a unit. Opportunity score, here we're looking at opportunity score. Here we're looking at the total tag allocation in that unit based relative to the size of the unit. So a unit that has a high opportunity is going to have a lot of tags per square mile. Um, Again, this there can be kind of a trade-off here between opportunity and, let's say, room to breathe, but um, those units that have high opportunity are going to have a lot of tags available per square mile. Typically, that's going to coincide with the ability to harvest an animal, but it's another way to try to measure the overall likelihood that you can hunt a unit. So we like to have a high opportunity score again for these hunt scores, or higher than average at least. And you can see Idaho on average is a 24, whereas this particular unit over indexes a little bit. Convenience. Convenience score, we don't necessarily weight this high, but we provide it as a way for people to kind of understand what sort of modern facilities might be around. So here we're looking at the number of hospitals in a unit, the availability of grocery stores, the campsites that are available. These would be formal campsites, not backcountry campsites, but an actual U.S. Forest Service campground, a BLM campground, a private campground like a KOA. Um, and then we're also looking at hotel and motel rooms available. So if you don't like the idea, or you're not somebody who wants to go into the backcountry and camp, or if you have concerns about being far away from a hospital, you're going to want to look for a unit that doesn't have a convenience score of 0. My wife, for instance, loves it when I hunt in the unit that has a hospital within, say, 30 to 40 minutes of where I'm hunting, just in case, the unthinkable happens and I need to get some medical services. So convenience score is another quick way to try to see if a unit has some sort of, modern facilities nearby or conveniences. And last, ease of effort. Uh, Here, we're actually looking at the number of days that a hunter spends hunting the unit on average. And this is kind of an interesting one because you can have units that have good success, but you're going to have to put in the days. This can really matter if you're somebody who has a limited amount of, let's say, PTO, or you're traveling to a faraway hunting destination where, 2 days are going to get eaten up by travel. And then if the expectation is you'll have to hunt for another 7 days before you're likely to harvest an animal, you could be looking at planning a 9-day hunt minimum. So ease of effort takes into account those factors. Here, ease of effort is typically scaled between 0 days to 10 days. So anything that gets beyond 10 days is going to have an ease of effort of 0, meaning it's gonna take some time to harvest the animal in that unit. A ease of effort of 100 means you're probably gonna shoot one the first day. Potentially, it could also mean that people just don't spend a lot of time hunting that unit. So ease of effort is kind of our proxy. It can be tied to success, but it can also not be tied to success. It isn't necessarily linked to whether or not someone's successful. So that's why it's a component into the score, but we don't rely on it too heavily. But it does matter in making up that hunt score or freezer score. So those are our 9 characteristics. Hopefully that helps you understand what goes into creating these scores. When it comes to the hunt score, the freezer score, and the trophy score, we have specific formulas that weight these 9 characteristics differently for each of them.